Welcome back to Hardball. As we reported, Congressman Anthony Weiner has now come clean, but he's not resigning, he says. Why do some politicians like David Vitter of Louisiana and Bill Clinton survive sex scandals and others like John Ensign and Elliot Spitzer do not, except he gets a job on some other network? How big a problem could Weiner have if he tries to run for re-election? Let's turn to our strategist right now, Democrat Steve McMahon and Republican John Feehery. Let's not get too far ahead of this breaking story. Steve, there's a lot of big questions right now.
Yes.
He says now he told his wife he was doing this kind of phone, whatever it was. He won't deny phone sex, but some kind of textual, sexual, whatever he's doing, sending these pictures around of himself all over his body and cats and all this suggestive stuff. Now he's admitted he's done all that, right? Won't deny phone sex. And then he says he's told his wife about it, as I said, and then he says, I'm not quitting. It doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't add up.
How do you admit the worst embarrassment and the biggest lie of your career and say, oh, yeah, I'm just moving on now?
Yeah, well, I think that's what he hopes, but I don't think that's what he's going to see. Somebody pointed out in the last segment that the New York media is about as ruthless as it gets, and he actually probably opened up a line of investigation on about 15 or 20 new things.
List them.
That, well,
six
each
women
one of these 6 women. His wife, who supposedly was aware of this and
she's not talking
allegedly
yet.
forgave him, and she wasn't talking and she wasn't there. He wouldn't say where she was. I mean, all the things. I don't know why he answered 40 minutes worth of questions. It would have been better for him politically, and I think it's a disaster for him politically.
Let's tell him. Why did he tell the truth today after all these weeks of lying?
Well, because he had to. I mean,
he had to because the pictures were out.
So he doesn't get really any credit for doing what he did because he had to do it. It was coming out anyway. And he opens up all these new lines of inquiry. And I think in 2 weeks, if Anthony Weiner's still in Congress, I'll be surprised.
Here he is talking about his wife. Let's listen.
My primary apology, as I've said several times, is to my wife, Huma, but she made it very clear that she thought what I did was very dumb, and she was not happy about it. But she also, and she's very disappointed, and she also told me that she loved me and wanted us to pull through this.
You know, politics is brutal.
Sure.
And as much as I think this guy's dead wrong, I do feel for him because nobody's perfect. And this guy's showing his imperfections on national television with 30 Barracuda in the room right there, including Breitbart, right? Yeah. The guy who broke this story. Your thoughts? Is he done?
Well, you know, Eric Cantor was right last week when he said he felt for the wife, and I think we all feel for his wife right now. And Democrats, I think back to Jerry Studs.
Yeah, but he says his wife knew. He laid it out on her.
Well, which is a terrible mistake.
Well, maybe she's partly responsible if she knew about it.
She's not responsible. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. The fact of the matter is that he made tremendous errors. But the fact is that Democrats in these types of things tend to stay in office. I mean, Studs, Frank, Clinton, they don't resign. And I think Steve's wrong.
Vitter.
Well, listen, I'm talking. Yeah.
Let me clarify my question.
There's a way you can
Why
stay in
did he
office.
say? Let's not blame her at all. But let's ask the question: why did he say he told her about this?
I have no idea.
I'll tell you why. Because he actually thinks, he's a guy who's very good with the media, usually, not the last 10 days. And he's somebody who's been able to explain his way through, around, and out of almost any problem or challenge that he's ever had.
So he says, my wife and I sat around and talked about the fact that I'd send embarrassing pictures of myself out, and I'm doing that right up to our wedding day, and then I'm going to stop.
Right.
What kind of conversation is that?
Well, it's a painful one. It's a very painful one.
It's a weird one.
It's a painful conversation that spouses have sometimes. You know, this is actually a very personal tragedy, and you got to feel for the wife. And you
might be the youngest guy here. Explain sexting and texting and all this stuff.
I don't know.
What is this stuff?
You know what?
I don't know. I think it's
what is this stuff? Why
I think for members of Congress to do this is idiotic.
It's childish to begin with. What is it about? Why don't people call each other and have a nice romantic conversation if they like each other? I'm sorry. Is it complicated? You used to go up and ask for dates. Is it weird now? You used to go up and say, how would you like to go out? There's a movie Friday night. I'm sorry. He was doing this before he was married.
And I know I'm here as a Democrat, and I apologize for not being, like, straight down the party line here.
There is no party line tonight on this.
Thank you. You know, the notion that this is a personal tragedy is only half true, because it's not a personal tragedy when it's a member of Congress who sends these out and is begging to get caught, and who then argues with the media over the next 10 days after he's caught and says that it wasn't him, he was hacked, and blames everybody in the world but himself, and then comes clean. If it were a personal, private tragedy, he would have quietly resigned, like so many others before him.
What's his strategy in saying, I take full, you know the phrase, I take full responsibility but no particular responsibility, meaning responsibility means you do something.
That's right. The
now, he's leaving it to the voters of his district. His district is in Brooklyn. It's a liberal district, obviously. It's probably very diverse and used to voting about 90% Democrat.
That's the
so he's not really worried.
His strategy was articulated when he said, I've been in politics for 20 years. I've served for a long time. The people of my district know me. He thinks they're going to forgive him, and I think he's wrong.
The issue on this is what happens with the ethics committee. Do Democrats pile on and say we need an investigation? If Democrats pile on, Democrats pile on because they're embarrassed by it, they don't want to be, they want him to resign. If Democrats decide, if Nancy Pelosi says to the Democrats on the ethics committee,
let me think about this. Older district. Most northern districts are older districts. Right. People younger move other parts of the world. Brooklyn's probably an old district. Your typical voter's getting older, right? The voter's 50-some, 60 years old. They got a Social Security problem. They got a disability problem. They got a problem at work. They got a labor rights problem. They got a civil rights problem. And they're thinking, this congressman's busting his hump for me. I know because he wrote me a really nice letter saying he was. A staffer wrote that letter.
Yeah.
A machine signed his name. Just a minute. And now he finds out with this guy who he thinks is helping him out with his personal case problem, which is so important to that person. It's life or death with them. Are they going to get their health benefits paid for or not? And now they find out that this guy is sitting around bored to death, either on his laptop or on his BlackBerry, wasting time. Pissing away time, if you will, when he's supposed to be working. And he said today, well, all my time is congressional. They like to tell you even when they take a week off, they're home working, right?
Yeah.
What's that tell you?
Well, I mean,
politically,
I think
if you're one of his old district voters, what do they say? Oh, thanks for helping me.
Thanks for helping me. And then, but Congressman Weiner's problem is that there are five or 10 or 8, some number of people just like him who are just as ambitious as he was when he first ran, who are clean and who have been doing the same thing for their constituents in their states.
And they're ready to run.
And they're ready to run.
They like that 170 a year.
And
absolutely.
And that's the thing about the Ethics Committee and Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi can easily replace Weiner with another Democrat. So is she going to increase the pressure on him to get out? And from what Steve tells me, she might likely do that, and she'll do it through the ethics.
Let's talk about shame. Let's talk about shame. Let me switch. Turn over the record to the human side. Weiner's embarrassed. He's immense to that extent. He is a man who knows what embarrassment looks like. He's not one of these shameless bums out there that just does horrible things and then walks past and said, take it or leave it. He looks like he's taken himself. His wife's not there. He's personally feeling this horrible thing. He knows that everybody in America now knows about his weirdness, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out where this takes us. Where does that human quality take us now?
Well,
John?
I mean,
the fact is, is he like Spitzer, who is absolutely shameless? And right on television, I mean, a big media star now, one of the networks. I mean, that guy has no shame.
Well, if Weiner decides to resign, maybe he can get his own TV show. We'll see about that.
But Spitzer did, I should say, Spitzer did quit when he got caught.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd sit here and say Elliot Spitzer's a profile in courage in this regard, but he did. I mean, with the exception,
this guy showed more shame but won't quit.
Exactly. He showed more shame but won't quit because he thinks he can get through it. Elliot Spitzer actually did make it a private matter. He quit. He went away. He sought counseling. Apparently, he worked it out with his wife, and he came back.
His wife too.
Right after the Clinton stuff came through, there were a lot of Democrats who wanted Bill Clinton to quit. I mean, part of being a guy who survives is you got to sell yourself and tell your wife, I'm going through this, and I'm going to survive. And that's what...
I think Bill Clinton deep down believed it had nothing to do with his effectiveness as president. That's why...
Well, and Weiner probably come to the same conclusion. The question is, will his colleagues? And that's the big question.
Okay, I think the colleagues are going to try to push him out the door because they do not want to... They don't want to be on the Weiner ticket.
They want to talk about Medicare.
No,
they don't want
this
to talk
is shown in the whale.
About Paul Ryan.
They are on the Weiner ticket. He will become the next bad guy of the Democratic Party, and your party will make him so. Thank you, Steve.